welcome everybody, and hello Michelle. We were looking forward to today to celebrate together World Health Day, and as Michelle mentioned in that little trailer yesterday, we literally like two kids in a in a sandpit trying different things and being very enthusiastic. And that's how we came up with this idea of having a little chat today about how yoga can help us with our health, and how it can help us maintain our health. Michelle is an incredible person. Yoga has been in her life for over 30 years. She contributed to many pieces of research, and her publications hit the world-renowned journals like YogoJo and Wall Street Journal. So I'm absolutely privileged to have you here, and also your work as a clinician in the hospital, where you were the one and only person to go to for yoga therapy, and then that manifested itself in the book that you've written about the holistic approach to a child, and how to focus on not just the symptoms but actually all the interconnected systems. So absolutely humbled to know you and to be here together with you. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome, and you of course are a force of nature in your own right, so the privilege is mutual for sure.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, I'm just wondering if it would be better if you came a little bit closer to your phone, because I couldn't hear you that well, and I don't know whether it's the same for everybody else. But that's great now. Thanks.
Now, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, a little bit better. Thank you. Okay, so look, we were going to talk about how stress manifests itself in human body, and how it impairs our health. So do you want to share some of your observations on that?
Yeah, and what we really got talking about, which is so important, like here we are, it's, you know, World Health Day. We could focus on so many aspects of health for kiddos and teens, but one aspect two that go together are sleep and immunity. And we now know there are all these studies that show that when, even as adults, we don't get sleep, it has a huge impact on our whole health, but specifically immunity. And so one study showed from the Centers of Disease Control that for adults, for one night of restricted sleep of just 4 hours, it impacts different aspects of immunity, like natural killer cells. That doesn't sound good, but natural killer cells actually help reduce any issues with tumors. And cytokines, which are very important, we can end up having an increase of inflammatory cytokines. And so even as adults, when we lack sleep, it impacts our immunity. But think how much more it's true for developing bodies and minds. Yeah. So we really wanted to look at how can yoga help our kiddos and us as adults to get not just enough sleep, but better quality sleep, right?
Yeah, and we know that there is lots of research that shows that yoga can help us sleep better, and also can help us with that sleep routine, because very often, well, I've got 3 boys at home, and sometimes it is literally like a battlefield to get everybody to work to sleep. So, and then it in turns and has an impact on the quality of day on the following day. But then if we have like compressed effect of many days of not enough sleep, that then starts impacting our health, not just on the mental health level that very often is shown as like grumpiness or maybe even falling asleep in a lesson, but then long term that can lead to impaired immunity, and then that has even further effect on kids, like, you know, dropping out from school or missing out on lessons. So what would you recommend in terms of using yoga to sleep better?
Yeah, and let's start with those. There's two aspects you just mentioned there that are so important: the getting to sleep, and then staying asleep, and then the quality of sleep. So we can look at what we call sleep hygiene. And so it's a lot like personal hygiene, which is, of course, just cleaning our bodies. Sleep hygiene are the healthy habits that we need. And so this comes from Boston Children's Hospital, and all sorts of research talks about how important sleep hygiene is. So the Cleveland Clinic actually did a interview with Dr. Vishal Shah, and Dr. Shah said, don't think so much about bedtime as when does the kiddo or the teen need to wake up, and then backtrack from there. And so we know that primary school kiddos need 9 to 12 hours of sleep. So think about when they have to get up, and then that's their bedtime. For teens, it's actually 8 to 10, which I got to tell you, that's where I think there's the biggest mismatch in our cultures of all of these activities that kiddos have to do, and then they don't get enough sleep. They're getting 5 hours of sleep, and just like you said, they might be trying to catch up on the weekends or napping, and that's not the same. They need consistent sleep. So what we know is that there's 3 aspects of sleep hygiene. One, at the very minimum, turn off those screens that I know we're looking at right now, but we turn them off at least 30 minutes before bed. And this is whether we're talking about kids, teens, or us as adults. At Children's, when I worked at Children's Hospital Colorado, we said an hour, but that's not always possible. So at least 30 minutes, that's one. 2 is a bedtime routine. And this goes so well with yoga. We know that if we want to develop our yoga practice, we need to have our mat in the same place. Maybe we have a little altar with some incense or a candle. In the same way, when we're getting ready for bed, we want to actually have a routine. We put on our jammies, we brush our teeth, and this sends signals to our brain and to our nervous system. Aha, I'm getting ready for bed. Prepares the brain. And then the third aspect, which everyone agrees on, is relaxing techniques before we go to sleep. And this is where our yoga practices are just incredible. So I was almost thinking, would it be helpful to run through 3 types of yoga practices that we could do that could help people get a sense of like, well, what exactly should I do?
Yeah, yes, please. That would be amazing. I was hoping to ask you about it, but as you offered, I cannot turn it down.
Yeah, I'm so happy. Here we are in the sandbox. So tonight you could do any of these 3 things with your kiddos. And I know for you in the UK, that's probably coming up pretty soon.
Yeah.
So we know that we have several different kinds of practices, not just yoga asana or poses. So let's start with a breathing practice. So if you have your school-age kiddos, it's really nice to make it playful and fun, but we don't want to have them all amped up, right? So we could start with a breathing practice called snake breath. And so in snake breath, we just take a deep breath in, and as we exhale, we hiss like a snake for as long as possible. And then we could do that just 2 more times for us here. You'll hear my dog coming into the room. He makes a lot of clickety-clack sounds. So inhale. And just following your own flow of breath one more time. Inhale. Lovely. So with a teen, obviously, we would just do deep breathing. Notice how already after 3 breaths, you might feel different right now. And yeah. Well,
I remember once reading about snake break, snake breath, that's actually used by Shaolin monks in their practice to be completely like, you know, embraced in their practices. But that's also an excellent way to practice, not just as part of our bed routine, but at school, you know, when the teacher would like to calm the class down, that's something to practice as well. And remember last time we talked to Crystal Souza from Global Institute of Health, and she said that prolonged exhalation has loads to do with the way that our lungs are built. That on the first part of our exhalation, it's actually the oxygen that we're exhaling. It's actually the second part of our exhalation is where we're releasing all the toxins. So having that very long and consistently hissing breath allows to release those toxins and also send the signal to our parasympathetic nervous system, as she said, that's the time to calm down.
Yes, in fact, that's such incredible work that we now have research on things like, you know, exhalation. And so two aspects I add to that is that when we exhale fully, one, we don't often exhale all the way. So that second part of the breath that Dr. Souza is talking about, we often don't get to. So we're not actually releasing those toxins fully. So
Yeah.
you can think how cleansing that is. But then on top of that, the way our breath connects to our nervous system, when we exhale and we extend the exhale so that it's longer than the inhale, it actually has an impact on our nervous system. And it sparks what we call the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the relaxation response. And when we do that, it tells the body to relax and let go. And Elvis, my dog, is really excited about this too. He wants to relax with us. So yeah, so that's snake breath, and there's all sorts of benefits. Like you said, Joanna, we can use it even in class to help ourselves calm down. If you've got a kiddo with ADHD or just general, you know, attention issues, it can help a lot. And they'll tell you, yeah, that feels good. So from there, we could do just a very simple sequence of yoga, maybe 3 little yoga poses. So that's why I'm sitting on the mat today. And so as well as Elvis, he likes to be on the mat with me. So I'm going to move over the dog. You'll notice that your animals love yoga if you have animals. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well, yes.
So
I don't have my mat next to me, so I'll just be watching you. But I bet everybody else can practice at home.
Yeah. And my thought is, like, as long as you can see it, most people have seen this practice, but if not, this is what it looks like. So we'll do a little cat-cow, and this actually helps when we connect our breath and movement. It further helps the body and mind integrate with that nice extended exhale. This time we'll keep them even. So we'll inhale and look up, and exhale, we'll round the spine and let your head go. And so, Joanna, I can see that you're actually doing it in your chair.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, you can do it seated, can you? Open up and then tuck in and circle your back.
Yeah. And we'll just do one more round. Inhale, the wave of the breath goes up towards the crown. And exhale, as we round, 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 it goes down to the tailbone. And it massages your whole spine. So that's a really excellent thing. Oh, and from here, what you can do, I'm going to do child's pose, but what you could do is you could just slide your hands down your legs and come into a forward fold. So if you're on your mat, go ahead and bring big toes together, knees apart, and allow your head to come down to the floor. And while you're there, you can breathe into your back body. So especially as you exhale, exhale all the air out. And as you inhale, imagine that your breath is actually massaging your back body where you're about to rest, where you're about to lie down. Take one more deep breath in And exhale, as we were talking about, long and deep. Knowing that on that second part of the exhale, it's such a great thing to keep in mind. It's that second part of the exhale that we're letting go of all those toxins. So those are three techniques that you can do either all together, or you can do just snake breath or just the yoga poses. You could even just do one of those yoga poses and it would be great. And then go ahead, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that this just feels so simple, and I love those yoga nuggets, I tend to call them, because they are not really about, like, you know, taking on a whole 1 hour long yoga class, but it's all about those nuggets of activities that we can plant into our life, into our day, throughout the day, and help us develop new habits. And I think also as a parent, the encouragement that is just so important, that that we give to our children to try those things, because sometimes, you know, to close the computer down or to take the mobile away takes more time than actually take those 3 breaths or go into a child's pose. I remember once with a child's pose, we had quite a funny situations. Freddie, my youngest, he's only 10, and it was around bedtime. I walked into his bedroom and I found him on the floor in a child's pose. I said, "But what are you doing, Freddie?" He says, "Well, I feel a little bit unsettled, and you told me that that's a safe pose, and I was in your tummy in this pose, so that must have been safe for me. So I'm just lying down here to let myself calm down, and then I will go to bed. Is that all right, Mummy?" I'm just like, oh my God, you know, what a clever child. And he did that, and he went to bed. So what I'm trying to say is that the kids, they listen, even if you think that they just completely ignore you and gonna carry on doing things. Do not give up, because one day you will have a Freddie moment and you'll be thinking with tears in your eyes that, yes, I succeeded. And then you will see how other changes happen in kids' lives, because they're learning those habits for life. It's not just for those 5 minutes.
It's so important. 2 things that you said there, that it was so clever of him. And the reason that Freddie thought to do it is that when you first taught him this, he felt how good it was. So then his whole being remembered, you know what, this is probably good for me. And so it didn't have to just be from his conscious mind. His whole body and being understood child's pose feels good. His nervous system knew that. Another thing, like you said, sometimes we don't think kids are listening to us. We're all so busy, and they don't actually seem to be paying any attention. But like you said, Joanna, they are. And so the more we get into a habit and we nurture with, you know, gentle kindness, but also a firm hand of like, this is what we do. We're going to do these 3 steps of getting ready for bed. Sometimes things get harder before they get easier. If your kids have been on their screens and now you're going to try to get them off, like you said, it can be really hard. You can feel like that takes longer than doing actual practice, and it probably is true. But time, it becomes a routine and kids like it. So it might get harder at first, and you might see more like kids getting upset. No, I don't want to do that. But eventually, if you keep trying, like you said, kiddos finally go, you know what, that feels really good, and this is just what we do. And I think I may have told you I had a teen client, because sometimes we can think, well, that's fine with the, you know, primary school kids, but teens really don't listen. Not true. Especially if we allow them to show us how they like it to be done. So I showed a kid something called Sa Ta Na Ma, and she used that to calm her nervous system down. And she said the next time I saw her in session that she'd show her friends. Her friends saw her doing this and they said, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Well, let me show you." And they loved it. And so this was something I didn't tell her, hey, go do this in school. It was supposed to be to help her to get to sleep, but she did it, and then she taught her friends. And so these kids, whether they're our primary school kids or teens, they do pick up on this, and it speaks to their nervous system, and then they have a lifelong habit. And like you said, it can be so simple. It doesn't have to be really complex. We think, you know, if we're going to our hour and a half yoga class, that that's what we have to offer. No, relaxation can happen in 5 minutes, as long as we put all of our being into it.
So how does Satanama work?
Yeah.
What's the magic behind it, or what's science behind it?
So much magic. So let's just talk about when we say the if we make that sound, it sounds relaxing. And we know that Sanskrit, which is the language of yoga, it actually is one of 2 languages. Hebrew is the other one, that the sound, it's onomatopoeic. It sounds like what it is. So is relaxing. When we go it vibrates something called the trigeminal nerve in your jaw, and that relaxes. Again, that sparks the parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation response. Then when we add the fingers, and I'm going to teach it to you in just a second, but when we touch the fingers, it brings us to the here and now, because we have to remember which finger, what sound, right? And kids love this one, both kids and teens. So we start with sa, and that's the thumb and the index finger. Ta is the thumb and the middle finger. Na, like na, is the thumb and the ring finger. And ma, like mama, is the thumb and the pinky. Now, usually they're down on the lap, but I'm going to do it up here so people can see. And we're going to start, and this is what I love to do as a clinician. If my kid is like just bouncing off the walls, then I'll start a little bit faster. So let's start at a little bit of a clip, and we'll do it. Sa, ta, na,
ma,
sa,
ta,
na,
ma.
Let's go at that pace for one more time. Sa,
ta,
na,
ma.
Now we're going to slow it down a little bit. Sa, ta, na, ma. Sa, ta, na, ma. One more time, even slower. Sa, ta, na, ma. Now just take a moment. You can bring your hands to your lap. Just notice what that was like. Notice your breathing. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. What was that practice like for you, Joanna?
Well, you know me, how expressive I am, and usually like, oh my goodness, that was great. I feel I want to say that, but at the same time, I almost feel like I don't have all that buzziness inside me to say, oh, that was amazing. But I know inside it was really nice, and it's just like, you know, resonates on that very subtle level where you feel that you kind of settled inside, and you're still kind of very aware and very focused, but haven't got, you don't have that kind of edge in you. So it's very, very nice. Thank you for sharing that, Michelle.
That is one of my all-time favorites, mostly because the kids that I work with tell me how powerful that practice is for them. And the thing is, they can be in school with their hands under their desk and just think it to themselves and not say it out loud. And they tell me, Joe, you think about how fidgety kids are. This gives a focus to the fidget.
Yeah.
Helps them channel it. But when we say the sound, and by the way, my understanding of what that means, sa, ta, na, ma, is beginning, middle, end, begin again. Beginning, middle, end, begin again. And so it creates a circular sort of resonance in terms of meaning. But we don't know what it means for it to be powerful. A lot of times kids don't care, but I feel like these are important things to know. Like, well, what am I saying exactly? And so that's what it is that it's creating that sense of circular And there's something about a circle that's eternal. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
the rich meaning is behind it. But it's just such a fantastic practice. There's so
Yeah, it is. There's one more thing that actually brought the Satanama practice brought to my mind in terms of like calming practice or practice that can also be used by parents to practice with their children is the bumblebee. So where we put in our fingers on our eyes and then we're humming.
yeah.
And that in turn helps us activate the vagus nerve that actually goes around our thyroid. And as you mentioned before, the vibration around that area helps activate the parasympathetic nervous system responsible for the rest and recovery. So how we practice that at home and with kids that I teach in secondary schools. So we put our middle fingers on the eyes and the pointer finger on our eyebrows and the ring finger on the sinuses below our eyes, and then the thumbs we need to put into our ears, but don't do it just yet. I'll tell you what we're doing next. So then we take a deep breath in and put all the fingers on the positions, and as we breathe out we hum, and that resonance in our head and around our thyroid, around our throat is just really nice. A really nice experience, but also has that like the impact on how our body then responds to that. So we can try that maybe just once and see how it is for everybody. So put your fingers on position and your thumbs into your ears. Take a deep breath in, and as you breathe out, let's hum.
That is such an incredible practice. And I want to mention that another aspect of humming breath that's so incredible is that we add to it a practice that we can do on its own, which is pratyahara, and that's the withdrawal of senses. So when we shut everything off as we do, it's a breathing practice. It really is a posture practice because we're doing something with our arms and we're sitting, and it's this withdrawal of the senses. And that withdrawal of senses, when you think about the sleep hygiene that we now understand is so important here in the West, it's withdrawing ourselves from the outer world. Because we talk about with kids, like another aspect of the sleep hygiene is lowering the lights. So we never say sense withdrawal, but that is essentially what we're talking about with sleep hygiene, is turning in, turning in, turning in. And yogis have known about this for thousands of years. It's a complete practice. And so, like you said, Dr. Crystal Salza is now studying aspects of breathing. We know that Shirley Tellis is studying aspects of breathing, yoga for trauma. And so right now we're starting to get this wealth of wisdom as to how is it that yoga works. But what researchers are finding is that the more they research yoga, the more wisdom they're seeing is in it, and that's been there for thousands of years. The cool thing is we don't have to wait for that research to come out. You can teach a pose to Freddie, and Freddie will tell you, hey, that really worked. You know, the beauty is we don't have to wait. We could run the experiment with ourselves and our kids, and it adds to our life. It really does. And it expands our world. That's the beauty, is when we do these practices and it slows us down before sleep, we now not only get enough sleep, but as we touched on it just gently, that the quality of sleep goes up. So one of the practices that you and I have talked about very enthusiastically is our love of the practice of yoga nidra, which is a sense withdrawal practice. And yogis sleep, and we're going to put together a little audio, and share that with everyone in the next few days. So we'll have that up, and we'll make an announcement on our Instagrams and through social media to let everyone know that yes, it's ready, and that will be totally free. And the beauty of Yoga Nidra is that you get to just listen to it. You passively accept, hear the words, and it will help you get to sleep. And the quality of sleep is so much better than if the mind was racing and then you went to sleep. Maybe the body goes to sleep, but you wake up and you don't feel rested. If you do these practices, any of these practices we've done today, or Yoga Nidra, which we'll share, it will help with that quality of sleep, which is so important.
Yeah. Well, so I think, but regrettably, we're kind of coming to the end, which is almost like, unthinkable for me, because you and I know we can spend hours on chatting, and we never have each other, we never have enough. But let's pause here and pick up from here next time. But just to sum up what we discussed today, in relation to our health, we wanted to encourage everybody to consider yoga as a holistic tool to help us look after our health. And the way that it starts is by helping us sleep better, because that's quality of sleep and length of sleep, whether we adults or kids and teens, that has an impact on our health, and that is represented by our immunity, by our resilience to a common cold or things that are a little bit more serious. And if we do not have enough energy in us that we build, well, either through our diet or through the sleep, we will not be able to be strong enough to be healthy. So if you kind of unpack that chain reaction, the stress that prevents us from having a good sleep, or habits that prevent us from having a healthy sleep hygiene, is something that we can replace or help to remove from our life by putting those simple yoga-based practices that then help us sleep better, help us be healthier because our immunity is strengthened, and help us be less stressed. So eliminating that major factor that impacts our health helps us ultimately be healthy and be healthy for longer. And if you do that in relation to our kids, imagine how wonderful gift you're giving them, so they know how to manage their health, basically cost-free for their life.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing all your wisdom today. Do you have any closing words that you'd like to share?
Yes, two things. You just mentioned something. So Dr. Shaw from that Cleveland clinic, he had talked about how, it doesn't cost anything, and you don't need pre-approval from your insurance plan, which I thought was hilarious. But the most important thing to remember is less is more. If you just did snake breath with your kiddos tonight, if you just did a deep breathing practice with your teen this evening, and you did that for 3 of the next 7 days, and then you just kept doing it, that is it's just gonna reap multiple benefits, so many benefits. And so less is more. It doesn't have to be a huge complex routine. You don't need to read lots of research papers. We'll do that for you. But in the meantime, just practice. Practice. And all, as Patabi Joyce says, all is coming. So thank you so much for this opportunity, Joanna. It's so much fun.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you everybody who joined us today. I hope you're taking a little bit of that wisdom with you to your families, and see you soon. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.